If you go to the DrizzleORM website, you'll find a little animation that basically displays how bad Prisma is compared to Drizzle, and it looks something like this. It's basically doing a lot of operations and showing you how Drizzle and Prisma perform doing those operations. Now, obviously this is Drizzle's website and they're gonna be a little bit biased, but I think that's all the introduction you need to Drizzle. But anyways, let's dive deeper into it while I talk about what Drizzle is, why it's better than Prisma, and what problem it solves. Now, there are a lot of ORMs to choose out there, like Prisma, TypeORM, or any of the other hundred thousands of them, but Prisma was a very popular one up until recently, and it was great apart from one big problem. The performance overhead was so big that 3 guys from Ukraine decided they're gonna build their own ORM that basically solves this issue, and it seems like it's the only thing that people talk about on tech Twitter. And also their website is one of the few where I can see them making jokes about themselves. DrizzleORM is lightweight, type safe, performant, and serverless ready by design. And it's also the only ORM that allows SQL-like and relational-like queries, which combines both worlds when it comes to relational databases. It does what basically any of the other ORMs do, but without the performance overhead, and especially important, it only makes one query all of the time, unlike some of the other ORMs out there. So to picture it better, it has a driver like all the other ORMs. When you write a query, it goes to this driver which turns the query from code into SQL and executes the SQL on our database and returns back the results. Like I mentioned, it has both SQL-like and relational-like querying. For example, we have an SQL that looks like an SQL. I don't know, like I'm familiar with SQL. This is basically how I learned SQL works. We select all, or we can specify which items you want from which table, and we can do left joins, full joins, and inner joins, and all that stuff, where ID equals to whatever. This looks like SQL to me, but written in TypeScript. And we have a non-SQL like. This is very similar to Prisma ones. We can do query the users and find many where posts and return the post as well. And it also has a Drizzle Kit Studio, which basically is having your database shown in your browser where you can see your data, you can add new entries, delete entries, and basically manage your database. It obviously has a dark mode, it looks slick and whatever, but that's basically all it does. And this, like a lot of other ORMs, you can easily run this for your local database. Now, researching for this video, I actually love Drizzle so much that I'm gonna refactor my meal planner project. If you don't know about it, I've made a few vlogs about it and I've talked about kind of the whole process from planning it to planning the database design, and now actually working on it. I'm gonna move from Prisma to Drizzle, and I'm gonna show you how you can set up Drizzle for your project. Drizzle has a CLI as well that you can use. So basically what I did is I used the CLI to introspect the database, and that made all of the schema files, the relations, and all of the SQL for my database. This basically was introspected from my database, so I didn't write all of this. But if we go through the schema, we can notice that this looks a bit different than Prisma. I have the Prisma schema here as well, which looks a lot different than this. For me personally, I prefer the Prisma schema, but I'm gonna try Drizzle and see how I find it, and I'll see how it goes. We define tables with a PG table, we define each of the parameters, each of the columns inside like this, and these are all functions that come from the DrizzleORM/PG core. Because I use Postgres, this is gonna come from PG core. If you have a MySQL database or the other supported databases, it's gonna be different. But yeah, that's the schema. And then these were also kind of introspected. These are all the types I'm gonna use whenever I get data, like select data or import data and stuff like that. Cool. And then all of the relations are defined here, which basically creates the foreign keys that connects all the relations between my tables. And this was also generated by that command. Once I had this, I had to write a database file. Now this is basically just to have a Drizzle instance somewhere that I can connect from. And I basically copied this from a migration article from Drizzle. I'm probably gonna rewrite this in the future, but it has a new client. It takes all of the variables from my environment variables, like the database host, the port, the username, and stuff like that. I need to connect my client, and then I create a Drizzle instance with that client and the schema. And apparently the schema is used for relational queries. Now, once I have this, I can use this to select data or create or anything. So here in my actions, I have get all ingredients, and I have database.select from ingredient, and this returns an array of ingredients. The one thing I also didn't like is, for example, if I want to select ingredient where the ID equals to something, it still returns an array. So I need to grab the first element and then return that. Just a very minor thing, obviously. And also I know that Dynamo does this as well. I work with Dynamo a lot, so it also does this. It's just why? Just give me the first one. But anyways, creating is also very SQL-like. Insert into this table with these values, and also we can infer the types. So here I'm inferring the type of my ingredient table. So this is a PG table, and this is a Postgres table. I can infer the insert model of that type, which is great. That's the type safety of Drizzle essentially. And I can ask this to return whatever inserted, and also returns an array. We can insert multiple entries at once, and I guess that's why it returns an array. Like this also works if I send the data as an array. I can send that twice. But yeah, this is just another example. Update this table, set this data where the ID equals to whatever I want it to equal, and then I'm returning the updated entry. Again, returns an array, and then I can use that wherever I want. And I just migrated this before the call. It took some time to change all of my Prisma queries to Drizzle queries, and at first it didn't work. I copied this database file from their article to migrate from Prisma to Drizzle, and didn't have the client.connect. So when I run my application, it just doesn't work. I couldn't figure out why, but yeah, apparently you need to connect the client before you can initiate a Drizzle instance call. So this now very fresh. You can see it working as expected, which is great. That's all I want. I'm gonna keep using Drizzle and see how I get on. Maybe I like it, maybe I won't like it, but I did some research online, and there are some downsides for Drizzle. Always, like anything, there will be downsides, but people usually complain that setting up is a bit more difficult, and it's not very straightforward. Like Prisma is just you run the commands and it works. With Drizzle, you kind of have to do a little bit of the stuff yourself, and that's basically because it allows for a lot of flexibility. Like the client here, if I have a different database, I have Firebase, or depending on what kind of service I use for my database, like PlanetScale or any of the other ones, I'm gonna use a different client here and then connect my Drizzle to that client. So it allows for a lot of flexibility, and that's why you need those steps in the setting up process. And from what I've read online, a lot of people complain about the migration process. Now, I haven't actually tried the migration, but in order for the migration to work, you have to define a file. It's a TypeScript file that runs your migrations, and apparently people have problems with it. I haven't tried it yet, but I'll try it and put it down in the comments if I have problems with it. Compared to other ORMs, I have never had to set up something like this. It just works out of the box. But yeah, we'll see how difficult it is. And I think, like, even though this is not very new, but it's still kind of new on the scene. People are just started using it like a few months ago. I saw a lot of people in the tech community talking about it, making videos about it. So this is still kind of new on the market, and with that comes a lot of problems essentially. But from what I've seen on Twitter, they really listen to the community. So if people have issues with it, they'll tweet about it and they listen to the community and make those changes. I watched a video by Theo. He talked about how he tweeted about some issues like documentation and they improved on that with some release, and some other stuff and that he tweeted they resolved. So they're listening to the community, especially big creators like Theo. But yeah, I think that's great that it's just 3 guys that made this, and they seem to be very ingrained with the tech community, trying to resolve their pain points, which is great. I love that. And I'm excited to see where this goes in the future. I think it's getting a lot of traction lately, like I said. I hope it just gets better and better and looks like a good product. I'm gonna use it. I'll see how I get on. So far it's been okay. But yeah, that's been it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any feedback, put it down in the comments below. Enjoy the rest of your day. Happy coding. Bye.